Hello and happy Christmas to you. We're still in the octave of Christmas, and yet today we are celebrating the great feast of the Holy Family. And it's part of the great event of the Incarnation, and is very important that we appreciate that there are dozens of things that are happening during this rich, rich time. Because when God does something, he does it in spades. He really does pull out all the stops. And so if you want to appreciate this season, you should really have gone to the midnight mass, the mass at dawn, and the mass during the day on Christmas Day. And now, after that, we have the Feast of the Holy Family, followed then by the Feast of the Epiphany, all of which show us different aspects of this great feast of Christmas. Now, what's going on here on the Feast of the Holy Family is that we are celebrating not only that Holy Family, because this is a real historical family, even though our culture airbrushes that out and just talks about the season and season's greetings and so on and so on. But in fact, this is a real family that was born and lived in real history in Israel and who did amazing things. So what we're celebrating today is the family aspect of their life. And of course, that's where the gospel will go. But the readings also take us into the family as it's understood in the Judeo-Christian line. Now, this is incredibly important to learn. Every person literally should have a 6-month course on family, because families are coming apart all over the world, and we're not doing a great deal in the church particularly to help individual families to function, and not only to function, but to absolutely blossom with family life. And this is crucial because all through history, what the dictators and the socialists that essentially are just a different version of dictatorship, the socialists have all done is to take over the family so that the state becomes the new family, and the biological family becomes less and less and less important. Basically, the state has control over your kids longer and longer each day and imposes more and more on them during the school curriculum, the ideology of various things, some of them totally unacceptable to the Catholic faith. Anyhow, we're looking at the dynamics of family today in all its richness, and the Jewish people knew this long before we did. You have this wonderful text from Sirach. God sets a father in honor over his children. Whoever honors his father atones for sins. Immediately we start realizing, gosh, there's a whole salvific dimension to being family. We can actually work out our sinfulness, not by being creeps, but rather by atoning for our sins by caring for our family. When he prays, he is heard. Now, unfortunately, this text uses all male pronouns, except for, I think, one reference to mother. And that's simply stylistic. We could say equally each one of these lines with the pronoun she. So when she prays, she is heard. When she is honored, then she or her children are atoning for their sins. Whoever reveres his father, his mother, will live a long life. Whoever obeys his father brings comfort to his mother. They've got all the different threads of relationships, all of which are precious and make our lives full and rich and happy. And we have to kind of look, if we're not so happy, which relationships am I not working on? Then in the psalm, you have this general statement. It looks general on the surface. Blessed are those who fear the Lord and walk in his ways. The reference here, the psalm goes on talking about the ways of the Lord. The reference here is the ways of the Lord in the family, because the Lord has designed husbands to be husbands and wives to be wives and mothers to be mothers and fathers to be fathers and children to be children. All these multiple relationships are all meant to be moved along because this is the way God designed a family to work, so that each person in the family could realize the richness of their human life. And of course, also learn how to worship. On the one hand, you have your wife will be like a fruitful vine. Again, a beautiful metaphor for all the different things that the wife does in the family. And then you have, blessed is the man who fears the Lord. The Lord will bless you from Zion, because you are realizing in your family, not when you go to church, but already in your family, that you are serving God or insulting God, depending on how you operate in your family. You are, in fact, serving and worshiping God. In the second reading, the letter to the Colossians, Paul is essentially explaining what Christian relationships are. For us, on the Feast of Holy Family, we have to refer that back to Christian relationships in the family, because that is the first and best place where I am going to work out my Christianity. Also, I'm going to learn my Christianity. So I will learn things like compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, and over all these put on love. And this is real love. This is not emotional. Well, I'm angry with you, so I don't love you. No. Even if I'm angry with you, I still love you, and I still work for your good. And I've got to ask God, excuse me, Lord, but what is the good for that person? Because I'm too angry to see it right now. So what is good for that person in your eyes? Because my eyes are a little prejudiced right now. Moving on then, we have the gospel reading, and the gospel reading starts off with the acclamation, let the peace of Christ control your hearts. There is the source of each relationship in the family. It is the peace of being loved by Christ, knowing that I'm loved by Christ, and consequently not making daft demands on my family, that they've got to put up with my moodiness and my selfishness and my impulses, because I don't know what the peace of Christ is. Literally here, the peace of Christ is coming from the fact that I'm baptized and confirmed, and consequently I can bring this peace into every relationship in my family. Lastly then, in the gospel, and this is the gospel from Matthew chapter 2, and here you have the story of the departing of the Magi and what happens right afterwards to the family. The Lord tells Joseph in a dream, as he's been doing all along, rise and take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt. Notice they go as a unit. They go as one family. This is not a selfish family. This is a family who, all of them, know their relationships to each other, respect their relationships to each other, and love their relationships to each other. Then there are two prophecies that are fulfilled because the family goes to Egypt and then comes back from Egypt when Herod has died. Finally, they end up in the town of Nazareth to fulfill yet another of the prophecies in the Old Testament. But the point is, ultimately, the prophecy is that we love one another. That's what came from the greatest prophet of all, Jesus Christ. And we have to learn how to love properly in families. And that, again, is not an emotional thing. It might become warm, fuzzy feelings at some point, and that's beautiful if it does. But really and truly, it's me using my brain and saying, how can I wish for and work for the good of my mom, my dad, my siblings, so that all of us have a rich and glorious, happy life? Have a beautiful day.